Please note this podcast discusses real-life crimes and may include sensitive topics such as violence, abuse, and other disturbing content. We recommend listener discretion.
They weren't very far away, but they couldn't see the apartment. It was dark. They were beside the pool eating and drinking, and they couldn't look into the apartment from where they were. But they admit they made an error, and what a price they paid for it.
I'm journalist Helen Fospero.
I'm crime reporter Martin Brunt.
And this is True Criminals.
A journey into the darkest corners of the criminal underworld with insights from decades of true crime reporting.
The stories behind the stories, plus exclusive interviews with those closely involved in notorious cases.
Re-examining crimes so shocking they still haunt our imaginations.
True Criminals Briefings.
So, Martin, you've been back in Portugal in the last few days, doing more work on the Madeleine McCann case. What have you been up to?
Yes, the Madeleine McCann case just won't go away for very obvious reasons, not least the fact that there's still a mystery about exactly what happened to her. So I went to Portugal to prepare a report ahead of the release of Christian B. Now, he, for the last 6 years or so, has been the prime suspect, the only suspect in the case, and that's according to the German prosecutor. Now, Christian B. was coming to the end of a rape sentence he was serving in Germany. The prosecutor told me in an interview I did that he was going to be released because he simply hadn't got enough evidence to arrest him and charge him in the Madeleine case, although, as he said again and has said for the last 2 or 3 years, he believes Christian B. abducted and murdered Madeleine. It's an extraordinary situation where the prosecutor has very publicly accused an individual of being a murderer, but hasn't got the evidence to arrest and charge him. So ahead of the release of the suspect, I went to Portugal to simply pose the question, if the suspect is being released, where does the story go now? Where does the investigation go now? And the simple answer is that the investigation continues where it was, where it has been for the last 6 years. The German prosecutor continues to look for evidence against Christian B. And what he hasn't got principally is any forensic evidence. He says he's got evidence that Christian B. abducted and killed Madeleine. He won't tell us what that evidence is. And he hasn't told Christian B. and his lawyers what that evidence is. It's all circumstantial. Prosecutor says there's a lot of it, but not enough to prosecute. So I was looking at previous theories about what might have happened to Madeleine, perhaps posing the idea that if they're not going to charge Christian B., maybe they'll go back to looking at these older theories. And there was one in particular that I was investigating 6 years ago, and I was told that before Christian B. emerged as the suspect, the then theory was Madeleine had wandered out of the family's holiday apartment in Praia da Luz and had been hit by a passing car, a car driven by a drunk driver who had panicked, scooped up the body and taken it away and buried it. According to my source, the driver was a German woman whose partner was a British man, and part of the evidence of this theory was that a neighbour had overheard a conversation nearby in which an English man had said to somebody, "Why did you bring her back here?" There were other bits of circumstantial evidence that suggested somebody had seen a car with a woman and a child in it. And all of this in 2018 was put together and investigated by Portuguese and British police. And British police, I know from Scotland Yard, had gone to the home of the British man who had since died and had questioned his family about this theory. Now, I think that the theory is probably not very plausible. And Kate McCann has always said the idea of Madeleine wandering out of the apartment is ludicrous because she would have had to have opened a closed patio door and the curtains and climbed over a child gate and the gate into the street. She said that no 3-year-old could have managed to do that. So I explored this theory, and I didn't really draw any conclusions, but I tracked down the German woman and spoke to her. She's back in Germany now, and she gave me the impression that she was completely unaware that she'd ever been under suspicion. I think I quite alarmed her, unless she is pulling the wool over my eyes and she either was involved or she was aware of the police investigation.
It made a special report for Sky, didn't it?
Yeah, I suppose what it does more than anything is just show you that the Madeleine McCann story continues to be a mystery. It continues to be compelling, and every now and again these different theories emerge and are investigated by police and appear not really to go anywhere. Even the current investigation into Christian B, as he's known under the privacy laws in Germany, even that has ended up with him being released without being charged.
It's quite strange, isn't it, that the prosecutor says there's evidence and yet he's released with no charge. I wonder where that will go next, and I suppose you'll have your eye firmly on that as developments potentially happen.
Yeah, I really don't know where the investigation goes other than it continues into Christian B. The prison authorities were trying to limit Christian B's movement once he'd been released from prison. So an electronic tag or a curfew or even a travel ban were being mooted. They obviously didn't want him to disappear, because if they ever do decide to charge him, they'll need to know where he is.
One thing I've always meant to ask you is you've made a number of trips over the years, backwards and forwards, to Portugal. How, as a journalist, are you received in Praia da Luz by the locals?
Not very well these days. I know a lot of people and have become friends with them. And on this last trip, the typical scenario is that I knock on the door or I bump into somebody that I know, and there's a big hug and how are you? And then, why are you here? You're not on holiday, are you? And then I have to say, no, I'm here. Oh, don't tell me. It's that story again. And people in Praia da Luz, which is a very small, very pretty resort, small community, get very, very fed up with the continuing spotlight on the village. And this really is a sense of the shadow of this unsolved case hanging over that community.
It's frustrating for you as a journalist to not know what happened to Madeleine, but it just brings into sharp focus how dreadful it is for Jerry and Kate McCann all these years later to still not know what happened to their little girl.
Yeah, and they don't get much sympathy in Portugal. Almost everybody in Portugal believes they had some role in her death. Not that they are suspected of killing her, but the original police suspicion in Portugal was that Madeleine had died accidentally in the apartment and the parents had covered up her death and disposed of her body. Now, I find that a ludicrous scenario, and the Portuguese police exonerated them. Scotland Yard investigated, found no evidence of that. Yet people in Portugal cannot get over the hurdle that the parents were dining nearby on the holiday complex and had left the children, Madeleine and her 2 younger siblings, asleep in an unlocked apartment. And it's almost as though people think, well, you left the kids alone, you deserve what happened. Nobody says that, but that's the sense I get. There's a cultural difference. People in Portugal, in Spain, in southern Europe, maybe in other parts of Europe, the habit is if you're going out for dinner, you take your children with you. I think maybe it's a particularly British thing, and I'm certainly guilty of it. I don't know what you were like when your kids were young, but we quite enjoyed having a couple of hours at night away from our children. Now, we didn't ever leave them alone. We had babysitters or a listening device, and we didn't take our eyes or our ears off them. The McCanns did, and they accept that they made a mistake. They weren't very far away, but they couldn't see the apartment. It was dark. They were beside the pool eating and drinking, and they couldn't look into the apartment from where they were. And Jerry McCann once described it as being in your garden having dinner with the kids upstairs asleep in their bedroom. And it honestly wasn't like that at all. But they admit they made an error, and what a price they paid for it.
Welcome to our new Patreon followers. Thank you for joining. Just to remind listeners, if you want to hear the episodes ad-free, you can. Head over to patreon.com/True Criminals. Stay with us for 3 months at Patreon and we'll send you a free True Criminals mug. Martin and I haven't even got one of those yet. Hey listeners, your support means everything to us. If you're enjoying the podcast, please take a moment to leave us a review. It helps us grow, reach new listeners, and keep bringing you the stories you love. This episode is brought to you by Audio Bleach Global. Our producer is Russell Barnes, with audio production by Andrew Chappell. The original score was composed by Chap Mannequin, artwork by Bleached, executive produced by Lee Mann. Follow True Criminals on Instagram at true.criminals and on YouTube at youtube.com/@true-criminals. For exclusive content and ways to support the show, visit us at patreon.com/True Criminals. For partnership opportunities, please contact us at contact@audiobleachglobal.com.